won't. I am your president.
No. It's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
No! No!
Won't. I am your president.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. There's Mark Hamill. Not too happy. Not too happy. I guess that's one thing that Donald Trump has in common with Darth Vader that he said that the left says he is, and that is he's Mark Hamill's daddy. I hope your day is going well. Mine is going really well. Mine is going really well. Yes, I'll admit it. Fantasy football was successful. It's definitely a part of my mood here. It was a really big win. It's an important win. It was a tough win. It was all the way down to the last minute of the game kind of win. So yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a win. And frankly, I feel very proud of the way I played certain things this week. But I'm not going to bother you all. I'm not going to bother you with that detail. You don't care about that stuff. You want me to get down into the legal end of things, the politics of things, and get down into all that good stuff. So I'm going to start off with something that I didn't have referenced in my thumbnail description anywhere there. And that is a story that came out today with Elon Musk announcing that he is now, we're actually making a filing, in the Alex Jones bankruptcy. We all know that he filed a notice of entry, that he wanted to join the case a week ago. A lot of people were struggling to speculate what role Elon Musk was planning on taking in that capacity. And we got the answer to that in a filing that came out today. Specifically, the reason he came in is he was objecting to the sale or transfer of accounts maintained by Alex Jones or InfoWars in his court filing. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this filing. I did look through it relatively quickly, but just doing a quick snapshot of what this is rather than just actually read this thing. Let's pull up the actual filing here so we can get a little bit of a feel for it. It's not very long. I'm going to be spending, it's really 14 pages plus a whole lot of exhibits. I'm not going to be going through the 14 pages with you. So I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to tell you that when they filed today in bankruptcy court, the purpose of their filing is to file an objection to the sale of Alex Jones' X accounts, whether it's his real Alex Jones account or the InfoWars account, that the trustee should not be entitled to sell those assets. You can understand why they would want to sell those assets, why his political enemies, Alex Jones specifically, political enemies, who, let's face it, are likely enemies of Elon Musk as well, would love to take his account and sell it to someone who would be able to get whatever thrill they can in making Alex Jones look like a clown. And Elon Musk ain't having it. He's like, no, you don't have a legal right to do that because you don't have ownership of that. Alex Jones doesn't have the ownership of it. He's just a licensee. He is a license to use something that belongs to us. And what he has is based on the terms of service that he signed off on and InfoWars signed off on when they first joined on. You can't just be like, oh, you now have a greater power. You now have a greater power because than the person who possesses something. So whatever level of power that they have, the most you can do as a creditor is step into their shoes. You cannot enrich their power to be able to use it in ways that the original owner would not have a license to use. And that's essentially the point that Elon Musk, and really, let's face it, it's technically X Corp is making here, where they say X Corp hereby files this limited objection to the notice of successful bidder and backup bidder in the auction for the assets of Free Speech Systems LLC, free and clear of any all claims, interests, and encumbrances. And we're just going to look quickly through the preliminary statement where they say, in particular, X Corp objects to the sale, assignment, to transfer of the InfoWars X account, which is x.com/Infowars, the banned video X account, which is also owned by Alex Jones, and they also have a judgment against them as well, I believe. The War Room X account, the Alex Jones X account, and any other accounts maintained by FSS, which I guess that's the FSS is the Free Speech Systems LLC that belongs to Alex Jones. And what their point here is that under the terms of service, all right, title, and interest in and to X Corp services, including X Corp's various websites, SMS, APIs, email notifications, applications, buttons, widgets, etc., services, they all belong to X. All that stuff. All that stuff belongs to X exclusively. Now, X, as the owner of X services, grants each user a personal, worldwide, royalty-free, non-assignable. You cannot assign it. No one can assign it. If Alex can't assign it, no one else can assign it. And non-exclusive license to the software provided. And in contrast to the services, the account holders own the content. So what they post up there, that belongs to them. That's their own creation. If you write something on X, the license to the ownership of that, if you write a book on X, you're obtaining the ownership of that by writing it there. But the actual account itself belongs to X. And then you just have a license to use it, but you don't have an ownership interest in it. And a lack of an ownership interest and a lack of a right to assign your license prevents Alex Jones from being able to transfer that account to someone for money. And similarly, someone who's stepping into his shoes as a creditor does not all of a sudden attain that jurisdiction. Pursuant to successful bidder notice of sale motion, to the extent applicable, the sale motion, the trustee now seeks to contravene X Corp's terms of service by improperly selling or otherwise transferring the X accounts, which neither Jones nor his bankruptcy estate own, to some third party. And while X takes no position on the sale of any content, because content belongs to Alex Jones, so if he creates something, if he creates a video and uploads it into X, well, that has a value to it. That you could sell. We're not saying we own that. That's content that he creates. That content belongs to Alex Jones. That would be something that a trustee could sell, take possession of from Jones, because Jones owns that. This content. The X Corp is the sole owner of the services being sold as part of the sale of the X accounts. And while X Corp has gained account holders has granted account holders such as Jones and FSS a license to the services, that license is not assignable, both under the terms of the service and applicable non-bankruptcy law. So the trustee must not be permitted to undermine X Corp's rightful ownership of the property licensed to FSS, Jones, or any other account holder on the X platform. And that's why they're coming on in here. Frankly, I barely looked past, page 3 of this whole thing. I'll tell you intuitively, I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. So you all know that. Let's get that out of the way. But intuitively, what they're arguing makes a lot of sense. Under bankruptcy law, you cannot just ignore the contracts that were executed by the creditors prior to their bankruptcy. Sometimes, in certain circumstances, those contracts can be somewhat set aside if they look like they were done fraudulently for the purposes of defrauding creditors. But that's just not a realistic type of claim when you're talking about a company like X. First of all, they need to be close in proximal time to when the bankruptcy occurs, or to some triggering event like the judgment occurring, where it's foreseeable that there's going to be a massive judgment coming against him. So in those circumstances, we do see bankruptcy courts sometimes vitiate otherwise secure contractual rights. But the reason that they'll vitiate is because it's like the reason that you're entering into this contract is to try and frustrate and defraud creditors. That's obviously not happening when that's just a blanket rule that that X has with hundreds of millions, if not billions, of different users. It's the same terms. So that being the case, also when you consider proximal time, that the X accounts that he formulated were was like a decade before there was any sort of triggering event like a judgment or a bankruptcy filing. So it's very evident that those contractual terms under bankruptcy law, as far as anyone can see looking from the outside in, they should be binding on the trustee. They should impair the trustee, stop the trustee from being able to sell or force any sort of foreclosure sale, judgment foreclosure sale of the X accounts. Again, content that's up there, they could sell in theory. If someone's interested in buying some video he put out 3 years ago, which maybe they would be, I don't know, there might be some commercial value to it. But the actual accounts themselves, like the real Alex Jones account, is something that X is saying, we're standing behind Alex Jones, that cannot be seized by a trustee and sold. That's going to continue to belong to Alex Jones or its original licensee. In each case, as there's InfoWars all under the FSS, the Free Speech Systems corporate entity that Alex Jones owns. So there you go. But it's just a license. So even if you got a judgment against them, you could not take that from him and move it. You can't transfer it because that's the contract restricts that. It's a very interesting filing by X. I think it looks pretty legally sound, and I think that Elon's going to succeed in keeping a trustee from being able to sell those assets, to sell real Alex Jones account, or the InfoWars account, Banned Videos account. Those accounts I do not believe are good. I think the judge is going to agree with X Corp on this one, and that Elon is going to succeed there. We should anticipate that. That's my prediction. I don't know. I'm just telling you that's what I see happening. What we got here? Oh, well, Joe, I blew you out on our first game. He did blow me out the first game. And you got me in this one. Congratulations. You see, the reason why this one was significant is A, we were both 6-5, and now I'm 7-5, and you're 6-6. So that's a big deal. That was one reason it's a big deal. And the other reason it's a big deal is because there's so much parity in our league that I'm actually vying for like one of the top 2 seeds, which would be actually kind of crazy considering I think the best record anyone had was like 7-4. I don't remember. So yeah. I'm catching up. But no one wants to hear about that. Douche NATO. We're going to get to NATO. We are going to talk about NATO and what a disaster they are. We could probably move over there now. Should we go there now? Should we go to that story now? Yeah, why not? Okay. 2 things as far as what NATO and the EU or members of the EU are doing right now with respect to the threat of an incoming Trump presidency, I guess, or escalating tensions in Europe between Ukraine and Russia. So, first and foremost, the Post put out an article, which actually came up when we were on X Space earlier today, which said the top NATO military chair warns business leaders to prepare for a wartime scenario. What the hell does that even mean, a wartime scenario? Well, chair of NATO's military committee warned business leaders to prepare for a wartime scenario and bring their production lines back home rather than relying on China or Russia to avoid blackmail or sabotage, as former and future U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to restore his America First agenda. What? Prepare for a wartime scenario? What does that even mean? Speaking at an event Monday for the European Policy Center think tank, Dutch Admiral Rob Bauer, whoever the hell that is, said Instability in global politics could leave businesses at the mercy of foreign governments, especially if war were to break out. Businesses need to be prepared for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly, Bowers said, because while it may be the military who wins battles, it's the economies that win wars. Well, you could say this, you could have written this or penned that at any time in the last 75 years, I guess, that at any time there could be war. You're saying because these America First agenda that there's more likely there's going to be a war? I don't understand what this means. Why is there more likely to be war when we bring in a president who's been a president of peace? The NATO military chair said Europe had already gotten a taste of this over the tumultuous Gazprom fuel deal, the terms of which Russian President Vladimir Putin stepped in to change following the EU's backing of Ukraine in 2022. We thought we had a deal with Gazprom, but we've actually had a deal with Mr. Putin, Bowers said. And the same goes for Chinese-owned infrastructure and goods. We actually have a deal with Chinese President Xi. The NATO military chief noted that 60% of all Earth materials are produced in China, with 90% of the products also processed there. The bulk of ingredients for critical healthcare items, including sedatives, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and low blood pressure medicines, all come from China as well, Bowers said. Seems like this is not a good situation because if we go into war with them, they could have us at their mercy. He warned that it would be naive for business leaders to believe that the Chinese Communist Party would not stoop to targeting foreign business in its country to disrupt the economies of potential adversaries. The dire warning comes as Trump has vowed to prioritize America First agenda, which could include setting 60% tariffs on most goods imported from China in an effort to protect domestic industries. We're going to talk more about those tariffs shortly. Economists expect the policy to start exactly early next year with 40% tariffs on imports, which would be a significant blow to China. The incoming president also claimed his first call from Oval Office would be to his Chinese counterpart to demand he follow through on a $50 billion farming deal. If you may have forgotten this, but in 2019, Trump worked a farming deal, which Xi has really not lived up to. And America has done nothing to actually enforce that they live up to it. So he's going to hit him up on his $50 billion farming deal. The deal made during Trump's tariff negotiations in his first term called on China to purchase $50 billion worth of American agricultural goods, on which he claimed Xi has failed to follow through, only because he has. Experts say Trump's plan would hinder Chinese economic plan for 2025 by a whole percentage point. It remains unclear how Beijing may respond. During the event Monday, Bauer also called on Trump and European leaders not to end the conflict. No. Why should we end wars? Oh, my God. Why should we end wars? It would be a dangerous precedent for Moscow and Beijing to do as they please against the West. Doofus. These war hawks. These war hawks are always so excited to send everyone else into war. Dutch Admiral Bauer. Are you going to be commanding? Are you going to be commanding your fleets up against Russia? Are you going to be doing that? You're going to be going into the Yangtze? Are you going to be doing it? It's going to be America or some proxy who America basically is funding. Are you going to be the one funding it? Is it going to come from your tax dollars? Dutch Admiral Bauer? While on the campaign trail, Trump suggests a diplomatic end to the war that includes Russia being allowed to keep the territory it has invaded, which would be a significant win for Putin. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, no. Well, you know what? Maybe you should have resolved this 3 years ago. Moscow currently controls about one-fifth of Ukraine at the launch of its invasion in February 2022, including Crimea and the vast majority of Donbass, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson regions. They've had Crimea since 2014. So, not sure what you're talking about there. In case you're unfamiliar with the whole Crimea situation, which you really should be a little bit more familiar with the Crimea situation. If we pull up a map of Crimea here, do I have a map of Crimea sitting here? Oh, hell no. It's important to look at a map when you're getting like a feel for what's happening here in this region, because the map is really important. Okay. This map gonna be good? Okay. We'll get there in a moment. We must save Ukraine at all costs, even if it means our very lives. Why? Because Ukraine represents everything that democracy is and should be. There you go. Exactly. Send them your wives, your children. That's what we have to do right now. There's no other way. There's no other way that's democratic. That's for sure. That's one thing we all know. It's no other outcome is democratic. I'm trying to find a good map here, which will help show. Which I'll show. All right. Why is YouTube linking the AP on the 2024 election in this video? I can't even begin to imagine. I cannot even begin to imagine. Well, but with respect to the whole Crimea thing, yeah, I'm not finding a map I really like here. Sort of get a little bit of a feel for it here. Yeah, I don't like this map. Dagnabbit. All right. In 2014, after there was a coup in Ukraine, whereby prior to 2014, there was the leader of Ukraine was sympathetic to Russia, had very strong Russian sympathies, and they had no problem with Russia basically using Crimea as a naval port for itself. Russia has ports on their eastern flank, which is the Pacific Ocean, and also in Crimea. The problem with their ports on the eastern flank is that somewhere between 6 and 9 months of the year, those ports are frozen in. You try going there next month, and no boats are going through there because those ports it's so cold there that those ports are all frozen in for like half a year. So if they're not frozen in already right now, the reason Crimea is so important to Russia is because it's a warm weather port, meaning that water doesn't freeze up in the winter. And since it doesn't freeze up in the winter, they can actually move their naval ships, submarines, etc., in and out of their base and actually have them be usable if they're in a scenario where they need to use them. So as soon as there was the uprising in Ukraine, Russia went into Crimea and took it over with what many would think is kind of what they certainly felt was a necessary military objective of securing a port for themselves, which would enable them not to have to put their navy on ice literally for half a year every year. So that's why they went into Crimea. Around the same time in the Donbass region, Luhansk regions, there was this whole separatist movement because it's populated by a significant percentage of Russians. And Russians and Ukrainians, while to most Americans, they seem to be very similar. Apparently, there are genetic and cultural distinctions between them, which make them easy to distinguish themselves one from another. And apparently there's a pretty marked distinction between them. I've said for the longest time that this conflict in the Ukraine has never ever been about anything other than economic bases. Now, when I was talking on Spaces earlier today, there's a guy, Jim Fapp, who was there, who I happen to respect. He's a very intelligent guy who made the fair counterpoint that every war ultimately is economic. That's true, but the question is it economic for both sides, or is it not, or are there other factors that are playing in there? Is it, in other words, America, when we tend to go to war, if you look through every war we've gone through since World War II, and including technically World War II and World War I, but every global interventionist war that we've been involved in, every war not in North America, whether you're talking World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, you look at everything that happened in our involvement in Middle Eastern affairs, you look at our involvement in both Gulf Wars, all of them ultimately, in each of them, the claim that was made every single time, the claim that was made was this was about American virtue, which it wasn't. We all believed it. We as Americans believed it. That's the bill of goods that was being sold to us by our governmental leaders, but that was never, ever the case. That's how they sold it to us. We all believed it for decades. And frankly, I do think that World War I and World War II were for virtuous bases. In other words, it's a concern that if Germany would have unfettered reign, that they ultimately would, that there's sort of a self-defense element to it, if not the virtue of democracy. The whole domino theory that got us embroiled in the Korean War and the Vietnamese War was insane. It doesn't even it makes no sense when you think about what domino theory is. It was ultimately disproven by people who actually have a brain. If you're unfamiliar with the term domino theory, this was what was going on in the 50s and 60s, where there was a notion that political strategists were saying, which is there's a whole bunch of countries in the Far East which are starting to embrace communism. And once one country embraces communism, another country will, and another, and another, and another. And they're going to fall like dominoes, and all of them will start becoming communists. Okay, let's say that's true. Let's say that one communist country breeds another communist country. So what? Okay. Does that mean now they become some sort of threat to America because they become a communist country? Cuba is a communist country which is 90 miles off the coast of Florida. That doesn't seem to have much of an impact on us. But although Cuba at that time was not, that's before Fidel Castro. That's a few years before Fidel Castro. Not a lot, but a couple of years. And it never made any sense because, frankly, if you actually believe that communism is evil and corrupt and self-destructive, which it is, and it is, and it is, you shouldn't be worried about countries turning to communism because in a couple of short decades, they're going to learn fast how terrible those policies are. They'll be the beacon to the world. It's like, oh my God, look at the disaster of communism. This is terrible. And no one's going to embrace it. So instead of the testing zone being locally, domestically, or even on some country that's on your shores, it's like in the Far East. What the hell are you worrying about here? Why are you getting involved? But there were economic bases for them to get involved. And the framing of it is that communism represents pure evil, or I guess anti-Christian values or something like that, which it does. It does. But there's plenty of anti-Christian countries across the globe. We don't go to war with them because they're anti-Christian or anti-faith. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. None of it made any sense. But if you look at it from an economic perspective as to how we could actually use these countries as vassals, or you could look at it as an opportunity for our military-industrial complex to get rich, well then, hey, yeah, a lot of this makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot more sense from that perspective as to why America would be motivated to go into these different countries. And you could apply that logic to the Gulf War, the Iraqi War, Afghanistan. You could apply it to all of these conflicts. At the time that we went in there, most Americans were on board and trusting of our government. And of what the legacy media kept telling us is like America equals good, opponents equal evil. And that was the framing that we have had forever. America is good, virtuous. Anything that is against that is inherently evil. George W. Bush even referred to anyone who is standing against America as being the axis of evil. Axis being a borrowed term from a reference to our enemies in World War II. And basically, you can have this amorphous axis of evil. Now, no one should mistakenly misunderstand or misinterpret my words here to say that I'm saying that these folks were good people. No, they weren't. There's a lot of terrible people in the world. We don't have to go to war with all of them. But you have an incentive to go to war with them if, I don't know, if your military-industrial complex is if you're sitting there as a politician, you're a congressman, you're a senator, you're a president, and you're getting all sorts of funding from these big, massive companies who are basically saying to you, hey, you know what, maybe we should, maybe like those people are bad, and we should try and show them that we're the real boss here and go on in there, flex our muscle because they're really evil. And it's really easy to sell people on how evil they are because as it happens, they are kind of evil. But it's not about us being the good guys because there's a lot of evil people out there. Newsflash, a lot of evil people. Anyhow, yeah. So, and there was a whole explanation that I played here of RFK pointing out that the expansion of NATO. Why are we expanding NATO? Why do we need to have these tiny little countries? These little 2-bit rundown countries that neither you or I would ever want to move to in Eastern Europe. Why is it that we need to expand into them, that they become part of NATO? Are they big global players? Are they significant? Are they going to actually, is their will? I mean, do you even know where Estonia is? That you do care if Latvia is in NATO? Like, oh wow, big win for NATO today. We got Latvia. No one cares about these countries. They don't have the financial or military might to actually be significant beneficial. Quite the contrary. All it means is we have to spend more money to ensure that we're protecting them. It's literally it's unimaginable. I guess it's technically, I don't know, 100 miles, or they would say 150 kilometers closer to Moscow. Okay. It's very, very aggravating. Very, very aggravating. All the funding from NATO, or the vast majority of it, has been coming from America for God knows how long. That's what Trump was complaining about in his first term, saying, hey, you guys in the EU need to start ponying up your fair share here. And basically, why is he the one saying that? Instead of America taking care of them? Well, you know what? Maybe it's just because, he's not someone who's being paid off by Raytheon and Lockheed Martin or all these other different military, massive, multinational, multi-billionaire, trillionaire companies which are producing these weapons of mass destruction and want to basically have a buyer. And the more NATO members you have, the more goods get sold if you're in the military-industrial complex. So that seems like a pretty significant motivation, because I can't figure out any other reason to bring Latvia into NATO unless it's just we need to get more money into Lockheed. You tell me, because I can't think of any. All of this ultimately is about the economics. That's all this has ever been about. And when the fight over Ukraine is because Ukraine happens to be A, very comfortably positioned between Russia and the EU, and B, ridiculously fertile soil that is arguably the most fertile soil on God's green earth. Some people even speculate that literally the Garden of Eden is located in Ukraine. So, yeah, that's why Ukraine is important. Not because they're all about democracy, because everyone knows they're not a democratic country. I mean, I shouldn't say they're not a democratic country. I guess compared to CCP, they're a democratic country. But if you're able to cancel your elections at the drop of a hat because you're in the mood to do so, you're not any sort of constitutional republic that America should be like, oh, we need to stand up for this democracy. Although that should come with a caveat for me, because I would tell you right now that the fact that there's very little freedom of speech in Canada, UK, I don't know, anywhere outside of this country makes me question whether any of them are actually what is classically referred to as a democracy, or we would refer to as constitutional republic, because those are not free states. There's no freedom on this planet outside of America. So we're the last bastion of hope for freedom, because these countries are not free. Australia is not free. No, Canada is not free. Europe is not free. UK, they're ripping open doorways for what you post on Facebook, and just marching into your house, throwing you in prison for what you write on Facebook. I mean, talk about ridiculousness. In 2020, Australia is throwing. If one person sneezes in Australia, they shut down the whole country for a week. And I'm not. You think I'm exaggerating? I'm literally not. It's like literally like they're like, oh, there's a person. There was one person who tested positive here. We have to shut down the country for a week till we get rid of it. It's just insanity. So, yeah, these are not to my mind free places. These are not places I would ever want to live, because that's not freedom. I have people all over me about this dangling thing. I know. I'm getting a new one. All over. I can't get new headphones soon enough. In the last 3 days, I've had so many people bring that up to me. All these chicken hawks think winning a nuke fight is feasible. Also, watch the Council on Future Conflict in 8:15-ish, 8:15-ish, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for all the info on conflicts to come. Thank you. Appreciate the heads up on that. We support you and your new pirate style earring. Okay, I get it. All right. It was a stylistic choice, okay? Armenians voted to become part of the Russian Federation after the CIA backpedaled in 2014. 24, and it was CIA backed, by the way. It's not just CIA backed. They say the entire thing was pretty much a CIA operation where they motivated the public to just start a coup, and then just had no plan. To be honest, Russia has invaded Ukraine for 1, keep Ukraine out of NATO. Yep. 2, secure the oil and gas rich areas to keep Ukraine from challenging Russian oil supremacy in Europe. Yep. And yep. Like I said, it's about money and security. So you might want to say that makes Putin an evil guy. If I ever argue against that, everyone's like, "Oh, you're a Putin apologist. Oh, you don't recognize, you're using Russian speaking points." No, I can say he's very evil and still say someone can be very, very evil and still be acting the way you would act if you were in their position in a particular given circumstance. That's the point. It's not to say I'm not refuting any claims. I have no idea what his history is. I can go along with the claim, and frankly, I have no knowledge of this. But look, as a former KGB top official, I have to assume that this guy had to literally twist some thumbs in order to get where he's gotten, and probably done a lot worse. Okay, there are probably plenty of people who were tortured, killed, whatever, by Putin's own hands, if not by his command, by his physical hands. Okay, I can agree with you. He's a monster. But if he were replaced by someone who were not a monster, and that person was a normal, rational individual, a normal, rational individual may have done something very similar to what Putin did. And that's a horrifying thing for Americans to actually, who support the war in Ukraine, to actually come to grips with. That even if he were not a monster, and he was purely just saying, hey, I'm Russia first, I'm looking out for Russian interests, and this is a logical move for Russia. And he was not someone whose life, CV, and history are drenched in blood, but were actually just a normal, good person caring about Russia. He'd be like, we have to do this for our own security, for our own safety. That's not to say that Putin is that guy. But if you recognize that, hey, even someone who's rational and sane and reasonable and a genuinely good person sitting in that chair in the Kremlin might make pretty much the same decisions that Putin made, that makes you recognize maybe we need to sort of sort things out here in ways that are reasonable to all parties and are fair to all parties. That's my point. It's like you sort of have to step back from who he is as an individual into thinking like, okay, so what would a good leader of Russia do in his seat? You tell me, what would he do so differently? He'd be totally fine with NATO, with Ukraine joining NATO, and having all these nuclear weapons so close to him, and being strangled economically. Be fine with that. That's what a good Russian leader would do. I mean, come on. Domino theory is right. Laos Cambodia did full communism. Our problem is that we managed war, not fight them to win them. It doesn't matter. That my point is, it doesn't matter. If the entire Far East became communist, who cares? Because communism cannot last for 3 generations. It cannot last. That godless, empty perspective of how a society should be enriched and made healthy and happy cannot possibly last. I'm going to tell you something. That's not my own quote. There's a very famous Jewish sage, arguably the most famous Jewish sage of the 20th century, was an individual by the name who's referred to as the Chafetz Chaim. His real name was Meir Kagan. He wrote a book called the Chafetz Chaim. I don't need to get into who he was as an individual. Just take my word for it that in the 20th century, he is the most significant rabbinical authority. And he died in the 30s, I believe, in 1930s. And he died in his 90s, shortly before World War II. And he was there in Europe during the fall of the Tsar. And he predicted when the Tsar fell, that communism will be gone. That communism will be gone from Russia in 70 years. And he said, "Why?" They were like, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because it can't last more than 3 generations." And the logic behind this is that the first people are really the movers who start the whole thing off to a movement that is completely and thoroughly empty. They embrace it and they really believe it. And then but pretty quickly it starts to falter. And their children are embedded with this feeling. The second generation are embedded with a feeling of recognition, like, wow, this is what we were raised as, like, this is what's right and healthy and moral, and this is a good thing, but it's really not working well. So they end up having not nearly the same level of enthusiasm, but following in their parents' footsteps towards meeting that objective. When they try training the third generation sees that their parents don't really buy it. So and that's where the collapse ends up happening. They have no chance or interest in giving that over as a legacy to the fourth generation. So that was the basis of his prediction. And it was clearly shown to be prescient because 1989, the wall falls down. So please get that dangling. I'm so angry about that. I can't even imagine how the conversation was going with that dangling. Oh my God. Putin told Clinton that Ukraine entering NATO would be a casus belli. Of course. Of course. Of course. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows this. Look, when the Cuban Missile Crisis, you know what the Cuban Missile Crisis is? Open a book, open a history book. Roughly 6.5 generations less than that, because you had JFK was in power. You had the Cuban Missile Crisis, arguably the most presidential moment of JFK's career was the Cuban Missile Crisis, where he stood up to the Russians and he basically said, you dang well better get rid of those nukes that you have sitting there on Cuba, 90 miles away from the coast of Florida. Okay? 90 miles away from the coast of Florida. I really need a freaking map here. How close is the border of Ukraine? Moscow. That's not the right way to go. Did it as the crow flies, meaning straight path, border of Ukraine to Moscow. Okay? Border of Ukraine to Moscow. As the crow flies, the border of Ukraine is approximately 490 kilometers, 300 miles from Moscow. You think that he can be okay with there being nuclear weapons 300 miles away? But they're going to be building bases of operations within 400 miles of Moscow? Unbelievable. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking. Everyone, that's why it's a casus belli. Casus belli is Latin term for belli from the Latin word for war. Cause of war. Casus belli. It's actually, you're right. Casus belli. It's the correct pronunciation. So, yeah. You can't have that. So we almost went to war when it was 90 miles from Florida. Okay? And that's like, in Florida to Washington is like another 700 miles. So when it was like 800 miles from Washington, we were like, no. 800 miles, by the way, in missiles that are flying whatever speed they can fly in 1960. Compare that to how fast missiles are able to go in 2024 and 300 miles. So we started our entire thing, the whole Cuban Missile Crisis, where it's like everyone's like, oh my God, this might be the start of World War III unless the Russians stand down, because we cannot. There's no. How the heck could we possibly have the Russians putting nukes in Cuba, facing towards America, 90 miles away from Florida, and only 700, 800 miles away from DC? That cannot happen. We said that in 1960, but in 2020, that Putin should be okay with Russia with missiles being 300 miles away from Moscow. Well, come on, it's ridiculous. This is what I'm talking about as far as act reasonably. Just put yourself in the shoes of the other side. In fact, we can put ourselves in the shoes of the other side because we were on the other side during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So we all know how we would react. Which Americans were living in terrified fear. When this was almost the start of World War III, when Russia did it to us from a further distance. We're like, no, we have to bring them into NATO. Why? Why does that have to happen? Oh, well, the military-industrial complex really wants Ukraine. Oh, they happen to be a really natural resource-laden country. So obviously we have to have them. There's no sense. There's no logic to it at all. Sun Tzu said that mark of excellence is in essence is to win wars without fighting the battles. Apply it to the last 24 years, see how it shaped American populace opinion. It's an emotional point of view. Yeah. We need to give me a little bit more detail on that. It may be time to upgrade headphones. Oh my God. This week. Okay? This week. I told you all, I'm waiting for Black Friday. Black Friday's coming. Black Friday's coming. The financial interests of Ukraine being bought by centralized banks, Monsanto and BlackRock, must be transferred over to the ownership of U.S. taxpayers. U.S. taxpayers must demand hold. See, this is the other thing also. So this is I started talking about this on Spaces today. It was a really interesting conversation that we're having on Spaces. This is my point as far as being America first. Okay, this is where I stand on this. There's no reason to look at the relationship between nations with each other and individuals with each other. Whenever you're assessing a relationship with others, a healthy relationship with others who are not, family, who are not kin. I'm talking about people that you meet, people that you have form relationships with. It could be people you meet at school, at work, the gym. It doesn't matter. A healthy relationship is one where there's mutual respect and each side has some sort of give and take that is even-handed and fair and reasonable. There's no reason that nations should have any sort of a different relationship with each other than that. That we all understand that each nation is doing the best they can for themselves individually, and that their primary objective is to look out for their own house. That's what you should be doing as a grown adult. You should be looking out for your own house first and foremost. You look out for your blood, you look out for your spouse, you look out for your parents or your kin. You might extend that to you might extend that laterally towards your siblings and family in that direction. That's your first obligation. But your first obligation is to under your own roof. And so too, it should be for all 190 countries across the globe. That every one of them, their primary interest and the interest of their leaders is their own country. That should be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. The top 10 objectives should always be there, with nothing able to rise up into that top 10. All of them should be related towards embettering your own house. Now, part of that is having healthy relationships with others. A healthy relationship with others means that there's give and take with others, that there's social or sometimes commercial relationships that you form with others who are outside of your house, outside of your kin, outside of your blood. You're going to need to set that up in order to have a cohesive society. And it's good for you as an individual to be part of that society. It's good for your house to be part of that society. So you form social attachments with other people. This is something that you all know. Everyone knows this. I don't know why I have to explain this other than the fact to say everything you understand about how you and your individual life works and operates and should operate in a healthy way works for countries too. Which means that countries should not be warring with each other the same way you shouldn't be warring with your neighbors all the time. Quite the contrary. You should be able to resolve your issues amicably. You might not always get along. You might have some sort of issue or conflict. You should be able to resolve amicably. You probably might want to be doing business with some of them. You might want to have exchange of goods. That should happen between countries too. Once in a while, you might have a friend that says, look, I'm really, really having a tough time now. Is it possible I can borrow some money from you? That could happen sometimes. And depending on the nature of your relationship, you might say, okay, all right, when are you going to pay me back? That's what you're going to say. When will you pay me back? Depending on the nature of the relationship, you may not charge interest. Whatever it is, you probably give friendlier terms to someone you trust more. You might loan people money, okay? But you're not in a situation where you're gifting money to people outside from your house. All of a sudden, I'm going to be sending you several $1,000s, and that person thousands of dollars, and this other person thousands of dollars. Oh, and they'll come back to you 3 weeks later. I need more money. That's not a healthy relationship. These are people who are leeching from you. And you you learn this pretty quickly in your life. If you have someone who's coming over to you, who every 3 months is coming to you saying, I need more money from you, that's not a friend. That's not a friend. Because let's say you say, you know what, I'm not giving you money now. Are you not giving me my friend now? So the only reason you're my friend is because I'm giving you money. The only reason you're being my friend is because I'm taking care of you. And if I stop taking care of you, so you're out of here, you're done with this relationship is over, then you're not a friend. And I've said this over and over again, that countries need to stand on their own 2 feet. And I'll tell you on this issue, when I mentioned this on Spaces today, someone said to me, yeah, we need to defund Israel. And I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If this is a policy America is willing to embrace with the entire world, I say, of course, Israel, along with everyone else. Yeah, Israel should stand on their own 2 feet, same way Ukraine should, same way Libya should, the same way Argentina should, the same way Australia should, and Canada should, and Israel should. All of them should, obviously. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Obviously. Then all of them should stand on their own 2 feet. You're grown. You're not some fledglings. You're grown. Stand on your own 2 feet. That doesn't mean, so now, they might come and say, hey, we need to buy weapons from you. I'd be like, oh, okay, fine, I'll sell it to you. You got to pay for them. That's going to come, it's not a free ride. We'll sell it to you at whatever, normal price is. It's very easy. This is something you do every day. Maybe you have, like with some people, if you have a business, right? So if you look at America as being a business, maybe you have like a friends and family discount of 5%, 10%, 15, 20%. It's not going to be more than 20%. Not going to be. So maybe you want to have something like that. Okay. But the same way you would not tolerate someone coming to your house and saying, I'm your friend, and I just had this calamity. So this calamity is whatever I think is a calamity. Maybe it is a real calamity. Maybe it's not. Maybe someone comes, imagine this. You have a friend who John, who basically his house got hit by a tornado. He's homeless now. You want to bring him in for a couple of weeks? Fine. You'd be fine with that, right? But that would not be every few months. That would be like a one-time thing that you're doing for a limited time, and you would sort of set out what your boundaries and zones are as to, like, what's the plan for when I'm done with this. But what I'm saying is we don't take any sort of course of action like that. No, this is just like a lifetime investment that forever we are just going to be give. And here's the really gross part is the people who are authorizing giving away these gifts are not giving from their own pocket. They're taking from your pocket. They're taking from my pocket. That's whose pocket they're taking from. So we put them in charge of us and they're like, oh, okay, now I can just dig into that person's pocket and start gifting it away to people indefinitely. And that, I think, is wrong. So my point is, there's no reason not to say that. Now, the thing I said to him at the same time was, I said, so if you're saying defund Israel, I'm like, okay, look, like I said, if you're saying that to everyone, of course I include Israel in that. But if I start saying this about defunding the world and your fixation is, well, we need to defund Israel, I have to ask, why is that where you're going first? What that's the one? Out of all the different crazy, stupid, retarded things that America wastes its money on, I just have to ask you tell me, the person who says that to me, why was that the first one you went to? Like, why is that like that? Those $3 billion, that's the $3 billion that you're really upset about more than the billions of dollars that we send to other Middle Eastern countries or to Ukraine or to finance gender exchange studies in Uganda. This is the one you're really worried about. I'm willing to say totally fine, on board. It's all part of the whole global get America healthy, America first, take care of our own interests, have a healthy relationship with everyone, which is mutually beneficial, mutual respect, understanding that each country is looking out for its own interests first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Now, when you tell me that the one thing that you can't wait to cut that cord is with Israel. I'm like, really? Why do you care about those dollars? Are those dollars like greener somehow? So that's what I'm just like, all right. I mean, I'm not passing. You tell me why that was the first thing you went to. So, yeah, that's but I it's a very simple, logical thing, because some people are like, no, we need to be globalists, we need to be interventionists, we need to figure out what's going on here. I'm going to tell you, Woodrow Wilson started this whole trend before when he got us into World War I, that America needs to be interventionist, we need to be globalists, we need to be the world police. That's where it started. Before that, we were never the world police. Woodrow Wilson started that policy off, and that basically became America's policy for the next century plus, and we can't get away from it. And other people are like, we need to be isolationists. We need to live in a cave. We basically need to say, forget about everyone else. Everything is made in America, born in America. No one comes to America. This is just our country. If you're not American, get the hell out of here. No, that's not a healthy way to look at it either. That doesn't make any sense. That's harming America. I mean, the reason you're part of a society is because it benefits you to be part of that society. I'm not saying that we should just, take our toys and go away. I'm simply saying, look at it as a freaking capitalist. And say, you know what, we're willing to work with you. We'll sell you our goods. We'll buy from you. If you have good products to sell, we'll buy from you. We're looking to have a healthy relationship with you. We might have healthy dialogue. You might have certain ideas as to how we can better our systems. We might have ideas about how you better your systems. Let's be friends. It's just that actual friends don't need to pay someone to stay their friend. They're just friends. This is not complicated. It's something you all know, and you all, unless you're a psychopath, or you're a sucker, unless you're some complete loser, this is how you deal with everyone you know. Why is it that this should not be how America deals with every country they know? It's very, very simple. It's very logical. It's very reasonable and fair. It's not extreme one way of globalization or isolationism. No, it's like, no, we're going to deal with everyone. We're just going to deal with mutual respect and understand that, hey, you know what? Our objective is take care of our citizens, our people right here at home first. And that should be your objective. And that doesn't mean that we're going to use that to basically that in that interest, we're basically going to be slaughtering you. It doesn't mean that. But we're going to be working, focusing here on bettering the lives of our citizens. That's what America First is, ultimately. So the reason I thought of it in the context of what Snuggle Struggle is talking about here is because at the end of the day, sometimes people might need us for something. And if someone wants to basically hire America, and America wants to get into the business of being like the world's mercenary, I could see that too. It's like, oh, okay, fine. You want America to intervene on your behalf? You want America to stand there as a big brother? All right. So what are you going to compensate us with? You need to compensate us for something. It's not a gift. So what are you going to compensate us with? What are you promising to give back to us? What are we going to end up getting for that investment that we're making in playing your bodyguard? And America could take that role. There's nothing unhealthy in that. There's nothing immoral in that. Because the notion of a moral war is an empty notion. Unless literally God tells you, go fight this war, there's no such thing as a moral war. And it's been quite a while since God actually gave that command to anyone. So, that being the case, there's no such thing as a moral war. So now you tell me you want to get in the business of the war, in the warmongering business? Okay. I can actually see that would actually, if we really want to look at this in a hypothetical perspective, I could see that actually being a healthy direction if you want, if you don't have a problem with the morality of engaging in war in general. You're telling me America wants to go down this road of saying, hey, look, a nation that's being threatened by someone is looking for some help, that we're willing to help them out. I'd be like, all right, well, what are they going to compensate us with? Maybe they have natural resources. Here's a great example. Okay, great example. A fight between two Muslim countries. And one of them is like, look, I want you to help me out over here. So then we need to sort of get down to terms. Like, what are you going to want from us? What are you expecting of us? How long is our involvement going to be here? What are you going to compensate us with? How much oil are we going to get from you? There's nothing wrong with that. We're selling our goods the same way a mercenary would sell their goods, the same way the Russians were sending over Hessians here during the Revolutionary War. That happens sometimes, and I could see why a country would be like, hey, this is something we happen to be pretty good at. We're pretty good at war, so you might want our troops. Now, I don't know. It's the Biden administration. They've been doing everything possible to water down our military, make it sound like something that's a terrible thing, that basically, our soldiers, you compare them to Russian soldiers, it's like basically, I feel like I'm looking at Drago versus Charlie Chaplin here in a skirt. But assuming that our military is still up to snuff, and I'm not certainly looking to besmirch our armed forces, because I'm sure that anyone in the armed forces can kick the living tar out of me, and I genuinely appreciate their service. I'm simply saying I'm simply noticing how commercials seem to be focusing on how much we can actually weaken our armed forces. So I'm certainly not talking about any individual member of the armed forces that or you may be. I'm not talking about you. You could kick my butt, but I'm just saying, comparing to like the commercials for Russian forces, I saw a comparison there. I was like, they show Russian forces. It looks like some cool action movie heroes, like the Russian army, and then like the comparison is like the commercials for joining the military is some woman going, as the daughter, as my two moms always advised me, and like, being the child of a trans mom, I can appreciate the value of joining the military. It's just like that's how we're pitching our military. But assuming that our war efforts are every bit as strong as American leadership would have us believe it is, which I'd like to hope it is. I don't know that it is, but I'd like to hope it is. We want to get involved in that, go down that road, that we're going to be mercenaries for the world. All right, what are you going to compensate us with? It should be that simple. Every nation has something. There's something. Part of the advantage of being Alabama as opposed to being Ukraine is that you get those protections for free. That's part of the advantage. The Ukraine's not Alabama. They're not California. They're not even Hawaii. They don't get those protections for free. And nor should any other country. That's a healthy relationship. And these are all things you know. They upgrade eyeglasses. Looks like MSNBC. Just stop it. I'm getting so much grief today. Hey, how are you, brother? Thank you for always being a good friend. Your counsel has been valuable and sage, but your friendship has been far more important. There are not good law tubers, but there is good logic. Peace. Thank you, brother. It's good to see you. Just give me a call. Granola Grin. Thank you for the chat. The above comment from Nick worries me. It shouldn't worry you. It's a nice thing. I don't know why that would worry anyone. I thought the dangly bit was you were doing your best impression of Rob Lowe's character from St. Elmo's Fire. Such an 80s earring icon. He was pretty impressive there. Russia isn't a communist country. Putin is not a communist. He and his wife are Russian Orthodox Christians, and over 25,000 Western Christians have moved there for religious freedom and non-woke. All right. You understand what I was saying. The original communism was, all right. You saw America died in 1931. I heard his prediction had more to do with Brysa about how every 7 years a new star rises to confuse navigators. Well, I heard the explanation I gave you. Hey, you! YSL trial almost over. I finally will have time for the first time in a year to watch your full stream. I'm so glad. Good to see you, Nick. Good to see you, Nick Stato. Read a history book. Every great story in history is dictators versus people. Read more history. I don't know if you're telling me or you tell my audience, but I read a lot of history. Both of my parents were history teachers. Both of them. And they could not stop infusing history into me. I was literally about to post comment on the Bay of Pigs when you beat to the punch. The U.S. are being hypocrites about Ukraine. Yep. Wagner PMC made it nearly 60 miles from Moscow in less than a day before they stopped. There's no large natural between Ukraine and Moscow. Meaning saying there's no mountain range or anything like that. It's like just flatlands. It's like we're just you just throw something up in the air 30 feet and just zip it out there. Nothing stopping it. Yep. Joe, you're coming boomer. Black Friday is not one day anymore. It's been going on for like a week already. Is it really? It's Black Friday then? Really? Okay. My dad was in the armed forces in 1960, too young for Korea, was a Minuteman missile tech. He told me it was a scary time for all, especially those in the silence. I'm sure it was. Because we wouldn't tolerate it. We wouldn't tolerate it at all. Wilson was a lot of bad things. First American interventionist isn't one of them. First time America boots were on front, so it was 1805. I'll DM you a vid. In Europe? What are you going to talk about, like in Mexico? I'm talking about the War of 1812. Is that what you're going to talk to me about? All right. Where was we at? So, yeah. Following up on what I just shared with you here about how they're saying, how they're threatening that France and the EU, if you just joined recently. So I was covering this story here, how this Dutch admiral was warning EU businesses that, hey, you probably should be bringing home your businesses and making them domestic because we're coming to a wartime scenario here where you may be cut off from buying internationally. On top of that, DC Drano was sharing over how General Mike Flynn was reporting that France and England are threatening to send troops into Ukraine if Trump withdraws aid. So all I can say to this is, look, let's assume that General Flynn has his sources on this, that they are threatening to send troops into Ukraine if Trump withdraws aid. That would be a reason for America to basically say we're out of NATO. Because the idea, which first and foremost, I'm going to tell you this, they won't do it. There's no chance they'll do it. There's no chance in hell that they will do it. And I don't believe for a second that they would do it. And if I were Trump, I would tell them, if you do that, we are withdrawing from NATO because you're basically trying to poke the bear. You're trying to poke the bear. You're going to send in your own troops there? All right. We wish you well. We're out of NATO. We're done with it. Because the whole point in NATO is that if Russia engages, any one of the members of NATO, that all the other NATOs are going to come to their side. Well, you're now engaging. You're deciding to bring NATO into this conflict. And that's ridiculous. I'm telling you right now, if I was Trump's advisor, I would tell him, you do that. That's your call. You can do that. You do that. We're withdrawing from NATO. We're done. And we're not part of your objectives here. Whatever ridiculous objectives you have of trying to go to war with Russia, we're not doing it. So if you want us out of NATO, go send troops in, because we're not gonna have your back on this one. It's that simple. Because think of how warped this is. That assuming this is accurate, I don't know that it is, but if it's being reported that that's what General Mike Flynn is saying. So assume this is a pretty fair. DC Drano is a pretty good source, so I assume General Mike Flynn actually said this. So let's assume that this entire chain of information I'm relaying to you. So you're hearing it. Let's understand this. You're hearing it from Good Lawgic, who's hearing it from DC Drano, who's hearing it from General Mike Flynn. And General Mike Flynn is hearing from someone. That's what France and England are saying. So whatever grain of salt you think you need to attach to that chain of information, hopefully it's not true. But let's assume for a moment that it is true. How ridiculous is this? That's like someone basically being able to say to you, that's like your cousin. That's like your cousin saying, I'm going to start up with the mafia and you're going to have my back. You'd be like, are you out of your freaking mind? I know you're my cousin. No, I'm not doing that. Why are you starting with the mafia? No, I'm going to go with the war of the mafia. I'm really upset with them. You'd be like, that's ridiculous. I know you're my cousin. I really like you. I care about you. I want good things for you. But that's suicide, and it's stupid, and there's no basis for you to be going to war with the mafia over this. That's what you say, right? That's what anyone sane would say. And don't tell me that because I once signed a contract saying, hey, if anyone attacks you, I'm going to have your back, that now gives you license to attack others and then say, I need to have your back. Because that just doesn't make sense. That makes sense. Ridiculous. They're really desperate. This whole thing reveals their desperation to try and drag Trump into a nuclear war. That's what this ultimately is. They're trying to drag Trump into a nuclear war. I mean, how much more evidence do you need on this? So you can end up being a wartime presidency. They're trying to drag him in here. It's really gross. Soltron says, is Putin any more a monster than Biden? I don't know. All I know is what they say about him. I know a lot more about the monstrosities of Biden than I know of Putin. So I'm not going to sit here making that comparison on an individual basis. My point when I was talking about Putin, which I think you got, was if he was replaced by someone who was not at all a monster, but just a normal Russian-loving Russian who has no history of monstrosity, evilness, has basically been taking care of Russian orphans his whole life and really loves Russia and worried about Russian interests, he might have done the exact same thing as what Putin did in this scenario. And that's a reason for us to sort of have pause here as to like, are we really the good guys? Are we really? But are we really? Because if you're, and this is what I mean by that, I want to expound on that a little bit. If you are a Russian, put yourself in the chair that you're now the head of Russia, the Russian Federation. You have to worry about your country's well-being, including their economic well-being. Part of it, and Russia is reportedly having all sorts of economic struggles. So part of what they want to do is they want to sell natural gas to the EU. The EU needs natural gas. America wants to sell natural gas to the EU. They don't like having competition from Russia. So they set up this pipeline and they build it across Ukraine, straight to Germany. Oh, we're going to take care of you. And the pipeline keep getting bogged down. Finally, in this war, like smashed. So, and the audacity of American media to say, for some reason, Russia bombed its own pipeline. What? No. No one sane believes that. No, Russia just punched itself in the testicles. Why would anyone think that? Who would think such a thing? It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. So what I'm saying is now, if you're not Putin, you're Putin's replacement. And you're that whole Russian orphan-loving guy. You're like, we really need this for our economy. Why are you choking us? Why are you choking us from being able to sell our energy to the EU? And America's like, well, our companies want to sell it. So there'll be competition. So unbelievable. I don't know why I'm sending this to the wrong thing. I clicked the wrong button. I'm going to stop sending this to Trump trial. I'm going to start sending this to X. I'm going to edit this and bring in X. Click my buttons too fast. For those of you who are just joining now on X, you're in the middle of the show, so you're gonna have to come to YouTube to catch the beginning part because pretty much it was gold. It was pretty much gold from like out of the jump. And I basically gave political analysis that you're not gonna find anywhere else. So you're gonna have to come over to YouTube and you're gonna have to see the beginning of this because it was just gold, and I can't repeat myself. So I won't. Anyhow. So I know that's my take as far as Trump and the EU and their efforts to try and embroil us in a war in World War III. And frankly, I feel really good about Trump's ability to negotiate with Putin and resolve this. I don't think this is going to end up becoming World War III. And frankly, it's pretty sad that the reason this is not going to become World War III is despite the efforts of the current Biden administration and whoever that may be, because we know it's not Joe Biden or Kamala. So whoever the hell those people are who are trying to embroil us in World War III. And despite the best efforts of Keir Starmer in France, yeah, I don't think it's happening. World War III is plans for World War III are hereby postponed, hopefully forever. And I have a lot of confidence. And the reason why, sadly, is because the sanest person in the room out of all this seems to be Vladimir Putin. Because if he wanted to, he could have been like, I warned you, don't cross that line. You crossed that line now. I got no choice. But I think he's too sane. Yeah, well, I think he might pull that back. He might pull back on that. I agree with you. He did. I think that's the way he's planning on ending this war. Is we're like, I'll let you sell some gas there. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about one of our favorite people, Jack Smith. Poor Jackie. He filed a motion today to dismiss the Washington action, and that was granted very quickly. For the reasons set forth in the company opinion ECF number 282, the government's motion to dismiss the case of United States versus Donald Trump. This was the case, is hereby granted, and the superseding indictment is hereby dismissed without prejudice, which means that in theory we could bring this back up again if it's within the statute of limitations. So you could restart this all over again if it's within the statute of limitations, but most of the statute of limitations are going to run by the time the next administration finishes, although then they'll say tolling. I don't know. Anyhow, but without prejudice, these cases are dismissed. If I was Trump, I still would give myself a pardon for them, a little pocket pardon. Don't tell anyone. Give yourself a pardon. Just put it aside. Just from anything that happened J6 or anything else ever. I would give myself a pardon. But Jack Smith has abandoned this case. It is so and he's also withdrawn his application to get to appeal the dismissal from Judge Eileen Cannon in the Florida case. And his career as a special prosecutor has come to a wonderful end. So at the end of the day, 91 charges, 0 convictions. 91 charges, 0 convictions, 1 election landslide. That's what it is. 91 convictions, 91 charges, 0 convictions, and 1 election landslide. Good job, Democrats. Good job. How bad can you be? How bad can you be at this? How bad? Everyone knew how bad these cases were. All 4 of these cases. I should take a few moments to talk about just how terrible each and every one of these cases were. Just to review. And I'm not even counting the ridiculousness of these civil suits. I probably should go through all 7 of them, because I think, as by my recollection, there was 3 civil suits and 4 criminal suits that Trump has been dealing with over the last 4 years. How this guy in his late 70s had the fortitude to withstand all of this legal abuse. Forget about the financial drain, because let's assume that every time he gets hit with something, he gets more people donate money to him to help him out. So let's assume it's not a financial drain. You cannot imagine the level of stress of being sued civilly. All the more so if it's the government that's coming after you civilly, because you know they have endless resources. And when I say endless resources, I don't just mean financial, but endless legal resources of people who are researching, drafting, editing, and basically coming after you. That it's like wave after wave after wave after wave of new people to come after you. That's why the process is the punishment, because you basically are dragged in there and you have to just deal with this and deal with this and deal with this and deal with this. And that deals with the E. Jean Carroll stuff. That deals with the civil suit brought by Letitia James. That has to do with all 4 of these criminal charges, just having to fight them. to hire lawyers, to go through the whole story, to go to court, to have to make decisions that lawyers are like, should we go like this way? Should we go that way? To have to sit in court day after day, where basically people who your biggest enemies are given a platform to get up there and attack you. And you have to sit there quietly taking it. Then you get gagged and don't have a right to even tell people just what utter lies it is without exposing yourself to further legal exposure. All of these abuses that were heaped on him for cases that were so asinine, one asinine case after another, whether you're talking about E. Jean Carroll, where you have a woman who cannot remember what year she was reportedly attacked in, what he was wearing, what she was wearing. All she knows is it was some closet in Bergdorf Goodman that she knows that this thing happened, can't even tell what year it was. Boom, $90 million. I mean, think of the audacity of this. Of course. I mean, with like just no credibility, this woman goes out there talking about how she has fantasies about being SA'd, and she $90 million for some encounter that she can't even remember. Oh, and P.S. No. It was definitely not the R word, but there was other types of assault in jurisdictions that are as hostile to him as possible, where you know the jury doesn't care about the facts. They're just like, get through your story so we can enter a judgment against him. We don't care what happened. We just want to enter a judgment against him. That's what they want. So, because whenever you're dealing with a political figure who's being persecuted in court, by definition, it's going to be a political trial, because people know him and have definitive opinions about whether or not they love him or hate him. So you go into an environment where you have a lot of people who hate him, and you can feel very confident that you're going to get a majority of them in a civil case to find in your favor. It's asinine to think that he had any chance in a civil suit. No chance. Judge Engoron didn't even let him get that far as far as having a jury. He's like, no. I want to sit through this crap on my own. And then I'm not even going to let him defend it. Judge Engoron, he was the judge presiding over the fraud case. When he was presiding over the fraud case, he said, I'm going to find liability before we even start as a matter of law. Now, you may not be familiar with the details over here. You probably are aware of the fact that this was for loans they took from Deutsche Bank for hundreds of millions of dollars, that he repaid every penny of these loans, and Deutsche Bank didn't have any problem with it. But the purported fraud that he committed was that when he was assessing the values of various properties that were being put up as collateral, that he misstated facts in there. To which Trump said, look, there's what he calls a disclaimer. It's really a statement of non-reliance, saying don't rely on my own statement. Do your own due diligence. This type of disclaimer has protected real estate developers who have borrowed money from the banks throughout New York's history. It's like, hey, don't look at me. Do your own due diligence. Well, this seemed to be pretty impervious protection for Donald Trump. So what did Judge Engoron say? He's like, well, that only works for stuff that is publicly available information. However, you can't disclaim if you're committing fraud about things that only you have access to that information. And since there's a lot of things here that only you have access to that information, you're not able to disclaim that. Therefore, I'm finding you liable. Now we just need to assess how much the damages are. Let's have a 6-week trial that I'm going to compel you to sit here for in the middle of election season, which just going to court and sitting in a courtroom for 8 hours is exhausting. Like you sit there, you feel like it's basically a larger prison cell. You're stuck in that chair for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, day after day, week after week. It's exhausting. For a healthy 30-year-old, it's exhausting. For a 70-year-old, I don't know how the guy sat through it. I have no idea. And this is some of the testimony that he had to listen to, which only underscored just how ridiculous this case was. remember, how did we get around that whole disclaimer thing? He said certain information that he lied about, he cannot disclaim and say, do your own due diligence, because only he has access to that information. Okay. Let's assume that's logically, that makes sense. Let's assume that makes sense. And let's assume that's true. So what should we be hearing about? We should be hearing about information that no one has access to other than Trump. That's what there should be testimony about. That's where he's committing fraud. The other stuff is disclaimed. The stuff that's publicly available, that's disclaimed. The only part that's not disclaimed are the parts that only he individually has access to, that the lender, Deutsche Bank, can't know. He's tricking them that they can't know. So what sort of information did he lie about? Well, that they allowed witnesses to come testify about. He lied about how many floors there were in a building. Okay. I mean, he says he was counting airspace. I'm not going to get to the whole thing about airspace. It's why he added on floors there. Is that something that he alone has information about? It's literally an active building which has thousands, tens of thousands of people coming in and out of it every single day for decades. And you're telling me that he alone has access to the information that Deutsche Bank could never manage to figure out how many floors are in this building. He tricked them, and he alone has access to the information. What other information did he purportedly mislead them about that he alone has information about? Well, he gave appraisals. He said, these are appraisals based on what these people are saying. And they say, your appraisals, terrible appraisals, terrible. Are those the only people who can make appraisals? Deutsche Bank can't make appraisals? They don't have appraisers? It was the most asinine thing in the world, because he took one logic to circumvent what should have been a dismissal motion and say, I'm not dismissing it because here's how he could be liable, and then allowed in days, weeks, months of testimony about things that he alone has knowledge about, like how many floors there are in a freaking public building in downtown New York. Or how many units there are on some golf course in Scotland, which anyone who does a flyover of it, I mean, you're loaning hundreds of millions of dollars. You could probably rent a helicopter for $3,000 for the day, $5,000 for the day, fly over and see how many units there are there. If you really wanted to know, they probably have land records. It's probably cheaper to have land records in Scotland. Sure. If you're in the Scottish real estate, you probably have a lot easier way of figuring out how many units there are in a certain property there. Only he knows. No one else has. No one else has. It's like it's hidden. It's hidden in the hearts and mind of Donald Trump. No one else could ever figure this out. How could they do due diligence? How could anyone figure it out? Only he had access to the information. That's the crap that Engoron. That's the lie of Engoron. The outright lie of Engoron. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all. It is thoroughly illogical. It is inconsistent with New York law, and it hurt the state of New York. As we saw Mr. Wonderful coming out afterwards saying, you just killed business in New York, because if you do business in New York City right now, you're an idiot, because Letitia James might decide she hates you and that she wants to come after your business. He's like, I'm not doing business in New York ever again. It's being an idiot. Why would I got to worry that she's going to get mad at me and all of a sudden just hit me with some $500 million fine? Go to hell. But that's to protect New Yorkers. She brought this, which everyone knew was transparent lie. In that case, I'm pleased to inform you, I'm confident that the verdict is going, which was entered by the judge, of $469 million or some stupid number like that. It's definitely in excess of 450. I'm very confident that on appeal, based on hearing oral argument that I played here on this show, I'm very confident that the appellate court is going to strike that down, if not entirely, cut it so dramatically that it's not recognizable anymore. If not, dismiss it outright. So that's the status of that one. Then we have the 34 guilty verdicts. Remember those 34 guilty verdicts? Well, Judge Juan Rashan kept pushing back and pushing back and pushing back on when he was going to give a decision on those guilty verdicts, give an issue whether he's not, because remember, I keep telling you, it's not a conviction. There's two-stage process at sentencing. What they normally say is, I hereby order conviction and sent as 1, 2, and 2 sentence to XYZ. Right? That's what you always hear. I'm ordering a conviction and sentencing to blah, blah, blah. But we never got to that. I'm ordering conviction day. And here is what Judge Merchan wrote on that. On November 19, 2024, this court received separate submissions from defendant and district attorney seeking various forms of relief in connection with the above captioned matter. People of the state of New York. Respective applications are as follows. He hereby ordered that defendant requests for leave to file a motion to dismiss pursuant to criminal procedural law 210.40 is granted, and is further ordered that the joint request for a motion schedule is granted. Defendant's motion is due in the close of business Monday, December 2nd, this coming Monday. People's response is due by the close of business Monday, December 9th. The court will not accept reply briefs, and is further ordered that the application of the state decision on defendant's CPLR 330.30 subsection 1 motion. That's the section I keep talking about. Sections Criminal Procedural Law 330.30 is granted pending receipt of the papers from all parties submitted to in accordance with the motion schedule noted above, which that means this sentence here means, in case you're wondering what does any of this mean, Joe, you're just reading law garbage to me. I don't know what any of this is saying. So first part here is basically saying that the request for leave file a motion to dismiss is granted. So you have to ask permission. May we file a motion? You can't just file motions at this stage. You need the judge's permission to file a motion. So he's saying, I am granting your motion that you're allowed to file a further motion. I know it sounds cockeye, but yeah. Then on that motion, so he's like, okay, so what's the scheduling for that motion? Well, that motion is going to be, you got to get your paper, Trump, you got to get your papers in by December 2nd. District Attorney Bragg, you got to get your opposition in by the 9th. When they say no reply briefs means I'm not going to let Trump respond to those oppositions. So the last word here is going to go to Bragg. That's a little bit unusual, but not always. Sometimes the judges do that. Sometimes they're like, I don't want to hear your replies to get it all out in the first shot. So does it seem slanted against Trump? And it's not a kind thing, but it's not a crazy thing for a judge to say. Judges, I would say like 10 to 20% of the time will say, I don't want to hear a reply brief. At least in civil cases. I can't tell you in criminal cases. So I'm not surprised to hear him say, I don't want to, I'm not going to let the party that's bringing the motion reply to the opposition. Then he says, order that the application of state decision on this motion and pending receipt of the papers. So I'm going to be staying in decision pending. So I'm further ordering that everything I was going to do with the whole scheduling of the sentencing and and convictions and all that other stuff, that is now going to be stayed. And the joint application for a stay of sentencing is granted to the extent that the November 26th date is adjourned. So I was supposed to be giving you a conviction status today, November 26th. That's not happening. That stayed. So he's never going to be convicted. I don't believe it. I don't believe he'll ever be convicted. So that's the status of that case. There goes 34 guilty verdicts down the toilet. Down the toilet. Oh no! Oh no! So that one's gone. And then what we have left is Georgia. All you have left now is Georgia. The two Jack Smith cases are gone. This case is is on life support, 1 foot out the door. The other one in Georgia, in case you forgot, the Fanny Willis case, that one's been on life support for quite some time. Not even because of the whole Trump win thing, but just because Fanny Willis did so much crapping in her own bed. Oh my God. It's like there's a feces stain here. It's like the dog raised his leg on that. You got pee over there. There's puke over here. This bed is so foul that I don't think anyone wants to lie down in there. I don't think anyone. You gotta be really low back. want to lie. No one wants to lie down in this bed. Between all the problems she had with her, with Nathan Wade, and all the issues she had where there's this odor of mendacity that's emanating from her. This is a disaster. This was basically going to the appellate court of Georgia, and I didn't think that Georgia was going to let her keep it. Which, from what I understand, everything we learned about Georgian law, that means that case is going to stay was going to go basically left potentially as an orphan unless some other district attorney decide they want to pick it up. I'll tell you right now, no district attorney's picked it up now. No district attorney wants to touch that now. You know how much puke that thing's covered? It's probably like boogers. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's just, oh God, nasty stuff. God. 4 indictments, 91 charges, 0 convictions. So pleased. So pleased. Of all these cases, the one which actually had the most legs to it was the Florida one, and that was the first one to officially die. And even that was kind of stupid when you consider how unfair it was in the application and execution of those laws with respect to Donald Trump when they didn't go after Biden for the exact same thing. But what an utter failure. Utter failure. So that's my thoughts on that. I want to get over to the Trump effect shortly in just a moment. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Let me check out the ghetto. I'm peeking on you, ghetto. I'm looking. I suck. I've been looking in the wrong ghetto chat for the last. I apologize. I was looking at the wrong ghetto chat for the longest time, like basically until right now. I was looking at yesterday's ghetto chat, and I only just noticed that now. So. Don't give me your little emojis there, Gundam Zig. Did I miss something? Did I miss any rants? Did I miss anything? Let me know. Let me know, because I don't want to do that to anyone. I'd feel bad about that. Yeah. Spud's been for 7 months. 12:43 a.m. and Jack Smith is still not a real boy. Still not a real boy. No, I know how Rob was going on and on about how desperately he wanted to be a real special prosecutor. No, I'm a real special prosecutor. No, I am for sure. I'm a very real special prosecutor. He's still not a real boy. He's still not a real boy. I don't know what this means. I don't even know. I can't even imagine. In short, you're a kind, peace-loving, God-fearing American. Putin is an ex-KGB who persecuted Christians and wants to make Russia great again by taking back the outer lands. He's not like you. Stop projecting your views onto him. See, I'm very much a believer like this. I'm a very much believer that we tend to view things from our own lens. I've criticized people about this for years. I'm not saying he is like me. I know you have very strong war hawkish thoughts when it comes to Ukraine. I get it, Sun Wukong. I get it. But when you're attaching malice to his motives for what he does, when you are attaching that malice to his motives and reading his mind as to why he's doing what he's doing, when you're attaching that malice to his motives and cannot justify it by the actions he's taken being any different from someone I described, I need to ask you how that is any different than someone who tries attaching malice to Trump's words on January 6th when he said march peacefully and patriotically. Because what you're essentially telling me is, I know what he really means. I know what he's really doing. I know what he's really thinking. And when you say stuff like that, that sounds like Cenk Uygur lunacy, where he's like, no, he says peacefully and patriotic. That's a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle. He's talking to people. They know that when he says peacefully and patriotically, that means attack. In the same way we laugh at that, I ask you, what makes you correct in your assessment into reading into the heart and mind of Putin with respect to these particular actions that he's taking with Ukraine? So, I'm open-minded. I could be wrong, but tell me what actions you have that justify that rather than your own negative assessment of Putin, the individual. First they ignore you, then they laugh you, then they fight you, then you win. I think that was Betty Crocker said that. Smith says the case against Trump associates will continue. I suppose Trump will then pardon them. Really? Oh my God. See, he thinks he's still real. He thinks he's still real. Yeah, I expect him to pardon them. No, who knows? Axios. I don't know where I have this thing here. Hold on a second. I don't see it here. This is the thing. It's a post 9/11 comment that I joined to defend our country and our ideals. I didn't get to dictate policy, only follow orders. Hope the government had the country's best interests in mind. Yeah. I get it. Because you're a patriot. You genuinely love America. And that's an incredibly admirable virtue. And you have sufficient even conviction to stand behind it, even putting your own life at risk. It's an even greater testament to your virtue. But, yeah. I thought the guilty verdict was the conviction. Shut up. You didn't think that. Amazon Black Friday headphones and cameras now. I'm on it. George, should I start shopping with like here online? Is that what you guys want me to do? Go on a little shopping spree with you guys right here. I don't know why it is that I do this show, because apparently, according to Axios, I'm not a real journalist. No. Let's hear from Axios, the Axios CEO here, talking the National Press Club honors in Vandehei, wherever the hell that is, for the really important people. I guess these are for the really important people. He was not happy that Elon Musk wrote a few weeks back, "You are the media now." He was not happy about it. Axios CEO melting down over Elon Musk telling X users, "You are the media now." So here's his response.
Everything we do is under fire. Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying like, "We are the media. You are the media." My message to Elon Musk is, bullshit. You're not the media.
No, they are. They are. What makes you the media? What makes you significant?
You having...
Just because you invest a great deal of money to share the news with people doesn't make you the media.
You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter.
You having $5 million and a camera doesn't make you a reporter. See, it works the same way. It doesn't make you a reporter. Not if you're a propagandist.
You don't do that by popping off on Twitter. You don't do that by having an opinion. You do it by doing the hard work.
What's the hard work that you do? Because the hard work you do is compromised by poisoned ideology.
Yeah, come on, slow clap, everybody.
Oh, slow clap. Oh, yeah, you guys are real media here. You're real media. Yeah, you're the real media. You're the real media. They're so excited to have him in here.
Well done. First of all, I've got to say, extraordinary content. It needed to be said.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we're the real media. We're giving you real breaking information here. It gives you, it's totally not at all propaganda. No. We're the real media.
Continues.
Let's all just, we're going to sit here. This is like, I wonder if they actually in one studio, just like reaching even to their neighbor's lap and just doing like the whole, it's like just one big circle. It's just one big circle. It's just one giant circle of aren't we special and important, unlike all those other peons out there. We're the special ones. No, really, you're the special one. No, you're the special one. No, you're the special one. They go in this little circle where they're like, oh, you're the special one. They're so insecure. Oh, my God, they're so bitter. They're so bitter.
Need to be said when all of the garbage is flying around on social media, lying about reporters, lying about.
No, people exposing you, being full of crap over and over again. That's not lying. They're exposing your lies. Doesn't make them liars.
The hard work they do, lying about the hard work editors do, lying about everything up and down about not only their alternative set of facts, but alternative set of facts about what people like you do. Or if social media, people lying.
So angry. They're so bitter. Oh my God, this has been a rough month for them. They're so angry and bitter. I'll share with you in 30 seconds why they're so angry and bitter.
Every day, every hour, every minute about the news. What you do matters. What the New York Times does matters.
Only to you.
What the Wall Street Journal does matters. What Jonathan Lemire does matters. What the Financial Times does matters.
What election results occur matters. Not what the New York Times does and says. Not what the Wall Street Journal does and says. Because what happened this month was that we had 77 million Americans say, I believe Trump more than I believe the media. And that's what has them all, quote, quaking in their boots. Because the only reason they have revenue, the only reason they have any sort of fame, acclaim, recognition, status, everything they have is rooted in the one commodity that they have been divesting themselves of continuously and relentlessly for the last decade, more than that, and that is their own credibility. When I was joining the space earlier today, when I came in there, George Santos was talking about how people are seeking out those who come across as being real. And I had a thought that I didn't get to express there that I'm going to share with you now. I think people have always been seeking out that which is real. And he was talking about politicians who come across as real. He's like, you might disagree with AOC, but she comes across as genuinely believing what she says. She may sound like an idiot expressing it, but she genuinely believes it. And she doesn't sound like she's sold out her opinions to someone else. We can debate about her individually. She's not really the point. The point is, there is a deeper hunger for this today than there was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. In those earlier decades of my life, we expected politicians to look a certain way, and we never really thought about it, but by definition, there had to be a certain element of plastic to them, where they're presenting themselves like, oh, I'm going on camera now, I'm going to wear a tie, and and everything's going to be very formal and official, and my statements are going to be very measured. And everything here is going to look like we're all part of a country club. We might disagree with other members of the club from time to time, but there's a certain stateliness which was an essential element towards your political gravitas. That your political clout was dependent on you presenting yourself a certain way, and that way was inherently somewhat plastic because you're not sharing your true self. You're sharing your public face and making your public statement to your audience. And that was what Americans expected of their politicians and their reporters, whether it was Walter Cronkite or Richard Nixon. That was the expectation, that your game face, you're going to be giving the public your game face all the time. Your game face is not you as a person. It's just that's your game face. And we're at an age right now where people don't want game face anymore. And the reason people don't want game face, the reason people tolerate me having things dangling from my stupid thing here with my crappy earphones, is because ultimately, when you're living in a world where truth is so difficult to come across, where basic facts cannot be agreed upon, whether it's about the reason we go to war, whether it's about what a gender is, whether it's about the motivations of various politicians or various players in the public spotlight, or just about the person who's talking to you. We're tired of seeing things that are obvious lies and attempts to gaslight us. So when you can't find truth here and you can't find truth there, we as humans are continually striving to find things that are truthful. So you don't want the plastic politician anymore. You don't want the plastic reporter anymore. You want someone who actually, you're looking at them and like, that person actually means what the hell they're saying. And I might agree with them, might disagree with them, they might be logical, might think that they're illogical, but they genuinely believe in what they're saying. And they actually care about what they're saying. And that's truth. And I'm in a world where there's no truth anywhere. Like it's impossible to find truth anywhere. So that's why these empty, shill, talking head idiots, self-promotional, self-important, useless, utterly useless mouthpieces who sit here with their high and mighty elitist, we're so special and important journalists who put the hard work in here to give you our spray tanned, coiffed, ridiculously transparently purchased opinions is like you're like a freaking dinosaur. No one wants this anymore. And they don't understand that the reason that changed is because they are the ones who stopped sharing truth. They're the ones who stopped sharing reality. They're the ones who traded in their credibility, sold their credibility to the highest bidder, who wanted to basically tell them, this is the point, this is the agenda of the day. This is the talking point you're going to have. They sold their credibility and sold their credibility and sold their credibility until it became apparent that they had no credibility. And then they were like, wow, why is it people aren't trusting us? They're trusting us. Well, because you basically sold your credibility out a decade ago. You spent the last decade reminding everyone how completely untrustworthy you are. I mean, I'm going to tell you this. They probably have more viewers than I have. I'm sure there are plenty of social media people that have plenty more viewers than Morning Joe. And I can promise you that the amount of trust that me and people of my ilk have from our listeners is like 20 times as high as the percentage of people who are listening to them. Because they have proven that they don't believe anything they're saying. They will say whatever it is they're bought and paid to say, and they have an agenda and a purpose, and they're going to look at whatever facts of the day are out there and try and spin it until it's unrecognizable from reality into like what this really means. This is what you should feel about it. This is how you should feel about it. I don't even tell you how you should feel about it. I just tell you how I feel about it. You can agree with me or disagree with me. I'm never trying to tell you how you should feel about something, but they're going to sit here telling you how you should feel about everything, even as they're ridiculously slanting their opinions and the facts to try and fit in with whatever narrative they're trying to sell to you. So you have to feel this way, and if you don't feel this way, you're a bad person. And you're sitting here whining. Oh, you're so special, Mika. Aren't you so special? Losers. They're so bitter. They sold it out themselves. No one told them to do it. They had every opportunity to be speakers of truth, and they chose not to. They created this vacuum, a vacuum of truth. People are like, where do we find truth? Because these people are talking about they're plastic. They're spray tan, hairspray, just ridiculousness. I'm just clowns. I'm sure about Putin because he sat down with Tucker 3 hours. 1 hour saying Ukraine, Eastern Europe were and still should be part of Russia. It's Russia's talking point for years. I don't need to project. Yeah, I think he does think that. Although, I'll tell you this. I had a Russian... I have a friend who escaped from Russia decades ago. He's living here in America. He's an American citizen now, I think. And he basically says, these are the opinion that you have. He's like, Putin is really evil, and he lies all the time, and whatever lies he's telling you now are likely to change 3 minutes from now. He'll give you a different lie. And he just crazy guy who just continually makes up lies to try and justify whatever is floating through his head at that moment. And he basically looks at him as a psychotic sociopath. And he's like, you're buying Russian disinformation. And what I'm saying is I don't need to look into his motivations. I just need to say, okay, how would I feel if I was in that position? I don't know what his motivations are. But I'm able to see where it is that, like, if I was sitting in the Kremlin and I was the head of Russia and that was my country, I'd be like, hey, look, we need to work something out here. Maybe I wouldn't have invaded. I don't know. But at a certain point, I might have. I want to get to the Trump effect. It's two things here. This was Trump's statement that he put on Truth Social. He's talking about tariffs. When he's talking about tariffs, he says, where were we? As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan coming from Mexico composed of thousands of people seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. 25% is pretty significant. That's pretty significant. Most times I talk about tariffs like 5-10%. 25% that's a punch in the face. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl and illegal aliens, stop this invasion of our country. Now, you're never going to get it to go down to completely zero, but I mean, I'm sure he's able to define those parameters a little bit better once he gets into power. But both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power. Until such time that they do, it's time for them to pay a very big price. This is how you use tariffs. This is how you use policy and laws to get people to do your will. You say, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to drop a tariff on you unless you stop this problem, which you're enabling to happen to me. So if you don't want me to hit you with this tariff, fix the frickin' problem. You're financially incentivizing people to act in accordance with what your will is. This is good governance. This is smart governance. This is a way of saying, clean up your freaking act. Otherwise, it's going to hurt you a great deal financially. That's what we should be hoping to see from our leaders. That, hey, if you don't get your butt in line and make sure that you're doing your end to make sure we're not getting completely screwed here, you're going to start feeling some pain too. I love this. I love this. I love this policy. I love this. I think this is such a great... This is Trump setting up his own presidency before he's even sworn in. We're in a very, very weird stage right now where he's practically president of the United States without being president of the United States. This is the Trump effect that we start to see here. Because if you're Mexico and Canada and you feel like this is going to happen on January 20th, 2025, you need to start why is he putting this out now? Because he doesn't want them to start fixing this problem on January 20th. He wants them on it now. Start fixing it now. That's what he's at. That's what he's telling them with this True Social post. For crying out loud, this guy is fixing the world with social media in ways that Biden couldn't dream of fixing with actual legislative policy. Because right away, I guarantee you, there's all sorts of conversations that are happening in the Republic of Mexico and in Trudeau with his cabinet as what steps, if any, what should we do with this threat that President-elect Trump has just hit us with. And I'll tell you right now, really good chance that they start affecting changes really quickly. Really quickly. This is him acting as president. This is the Trump effect even before he's sworn into office. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Just the threat of tariffs as a motivating factor to get Canada and Mexico to help ensure that our borders are not being flooded with fentanyl. It's an amazing thing that he's done without even being sworn in. He could have done this afterwards. Politically, it makes sense for him to do it afterwards. This way he could say, oh, okay, January 20th, this is how much is flooding in. And a year later, here's how much is flooding in. No. This doesn't help him politically. It just helps him get the freaking job done. Which is just a perspective that so few politicians in Washington actually care about, like just getting something done. I'm so glad we elected this man. God, what a godsend he is. Such an amazing godsend. But the hits don't stop there because there's more Trump effect I want to share with you here, which I only discovered shortly before the show. I haven't seen this yet, but I'm going to watch it with you. This is Robbie Starbuck, and he's talking about the impact that he's been able to have on Walmart. And I can tell you right now, this would not happen if not for the Trump effect. Some positive changes coming from Walmart. Check this guy out.
All right, y'all. I don't even know how to start this video because honestly, this is different than everything else we've done because this is the single largest employer in the United States. We are talking about a company that is worth almost $1 trillion on its own. As many of you know, I have been investigating a massive company now for a while, and I have kept my lips sealed on who it was. Now I can reveal it was Walmart, but something incredible happened in the course of my investigation. Walmart became aware of our investigation and reached out to me. This was critical and honestly turned out pretty fantastic for everybody involved, in my opinion. We were able to have frank conversations conversations with Walmart. And as I've said for a long time, I don't ask companies to take on my political views. I am simply advocating for corporate neutrality. I believe that that is the future because I understand there are people in this country who do not agree with my politics. So it would not be fair of me to force my politics on them the same way that I am not okay with left-wing policies being forced on me and people like me via things like DEI. After various conversations, I am very proud to report to you guys that Walmart has decided on making some changes. I'm going to lay out what those changes are for you and explain how massive this is for our movement. We are unstoppable at this point with a 100% flip rate where we change corporate America and get them back to a
Trump effect. We lose the election. This doesn't happen. No way. No way, no how. They'd be like, all right, go cry in the wind. No one cares. Trump effect.
Culture of sanity and neutrality. Bullet point number 1, Walmart will be removing all inappropriate sexual and or transgender products that are marketed toward kids, things like chest binders for teenagers or books that encourage transitioning. That is all going to be gone. Bullet point number 2, Walmart is going to review and stop funding to all events that could be sexually inappropriate for kids. That includes drag queen story time or pride events that expose kids to sexually inappropriate topics. That's all.
You want to talk about domino theory? Right here. Right here. If Walmart's doing this, this is going to domino theory, baby. They're all going to start falling.
Going to stop going forward. Third bullet point, Walmart will be closing their racial equity center. This is a center they had committed $100 million to, and it was a 5-year project. They will be closing that center going forward. Fourth bullet point, Walmart will no longer participate in the HRC's Corporate Equality Index social credit system. This scoring system is what has brought wokeness into so many segments of corporate America, and we are happy to see them no longer participating. There is not a corporation in America that should be participating with the HRC, CEI.
That should be abolished. And that has to be abolished. All of that crap, which came in 2008, has to be abolished.
Scoring system going forward. The HRC got explicitly political in the 2024 election, working with everything they have to defeat Donald Trump and calling him every name in the book. It is time for companies to recognize that they need to move away from this system that is explicitly political and embrace corporate neutrality so that everybody is welcome in their stores. Fifth bullet point, Walmart is going to be reviewing their supplier diversity programs to ensure that nobody's receiving preferential treatment on the basis of race. And they will also ensure that financing eligibility will no longer be predicated on providing certain demographic information. Sixth bullet point, and this is a favorite for me, being Latino myself, Walmart will no longer be using the term Latinx in any of their official communications. That is going to be wiped away. I was very disappointed to see it was there. But again, this is across corporate America. So this is a company, Walmart, who is doing the right thing here. And I want to give them credit for that. Getting rid of this big. We don't want.
See, I never understood the whole Latinx thing. I didn't know that was a woke thing. I never knew what it was. I mean, I guess at some point I realized it was like a woke thing. I never understood it. I still don't get why Latino, because it's gendered language, Latino versus Latina. It's so stupid. Why wouldn't you just say Latin? I don't understand I don't understand why you need the X. Just say Latin. And why would you can't even, how do you pronounce, is that Latinx? How would you pronounce that?
Want to hear Latinx ever again. Bullet point number 7, Walmart will be discontinuing their racial equity training through the Racial Equity Institute.
I know
again,
that.
Getting rid of woke trainings. And last but not least, drumroll please for the big one, DEI. They will be discontinuing use of DEI both publicly and privately at Walmart. This is a massive win for our movement. The momentum just keeps growing. This is the largest employer in the United States, worth almost $1 trillion. Other companies are taking notice. Suppliers of Walmart are taking notice now. With Christmas right around the corner, I'm happy I could deliver you guys one retailer that will drop the woke policies. You've still got Amazon and Target acting crazy out there with wokeness. So I'm glad I could give you guys one at least. And yes, we do have our eyes on Amazon and Target. America just voted, and we voted against wokeness. We voted for sanity. We voted for corporate neutrality. We don't want companies funding divisive things. And Walmart is setting a great example here for other companies to turn around. It's not too late. Turn around. People are very forgiving, and we can get back to sanity together and rebuild and make this country the greatest it can possibly be. As this New York Times headline clearly illustrates, the paradigm has changed. Companies need to listen to our movement. We are powerful and growing every single day. We will not stop until we have eliminated wokeness in corporate America. If you love our work to remove wokeness from corporate America, follow me, share these videos, subscribe to my X page. It's $5 a month. It supports our research team. But please tell your friends about this, and let's keep this movement growing.
Great job. Great job, Robbie Starbuck. Great job. Give him a follow over on X. Consider subscribing to him. Great job. This is someone not just complaining about it, but actually doing something about it. God bless this man. Great job. Great job. Yeah. And I'll tell you something, I agree with him. We sort of need to motivate them that we're going to be forgiving. Otherwise, why shouldn't they just, stick and die with those beliefs? We sort of need to motivate them that we're going to be forgiving. I want to put out a poll right now. If Budweiser, which I'm sure most of you are basically like, ew, gross, I would never buy anything from them. I'm sure many of you are like that. If Budweiser were to commit to make similar changes to what Walmart just committed to Robbie Starbuck, would you forgive him? That's my question. Would you forgive him? That's the poll question. Also, if you're here and you can hit like and subscribe, I'd be most obliged. That'd be great. That'd be good. That'd be a good thing to do right now. Because you're not going to get commentary like this anywhere else. And I still have under 50% subscriptions. So here is with Budweiser. The question's too long. Damn it. Yes or no, Ghetto? Would you forgive Budweiser if they mirrored Walmart and abandoned their DEI crap? Dumb.woo.com. What? What is that? Text 47 says, let's call enlightened self-interest, Joe. If I won't fight for my country, who will? It's a very real question that must be answered. And if your country isn't worth fighting for, it's true. It's true. But a lot of people don't have the courage of their convictions. Kimmy says, America's always wanted to go to war with Russia, and allowing Ukraine to join NATO was the perfect excuse. Well, they seem to be pushing hard for it now. I'm not going to kid you. Stock market went up because of who Trump picked. Really? Oh, cool. DI is great, needed everywhere, obviously. DI because your race matters. Because your race matters to us. Check out the new Bud Light commercial features Shane Gillis. I saw the new Bud Light commercial featuring Shane Gillis. I didn't show it. But I saw it. It's actually kind of funny. have to apologize first? Okay. This is their commercial.
It is not just a fragrance. It is a feeling. It is a passion.
What? Oh, where'd you get a snake?
We are all lost,
Yeah, I'm lost. I'm 100% lost here.
but we are on the edge.
Hey, all right. This is pocket full of sand. Yeah. Hey, I think I'm in the wrong commercial.
What?
Yeah, dude, this isn't right.
Wait, aren't you Andre?
No, I'm Shane. My name's Shane.
Huh. Oh, I see what's going on. You're supposed to be in a Bud Light commercial.
Oh, I'm supposed to be in a Bud Light. I'm supposed to be in a Bud Light commercial, not here. So that's why I'm the odd one out down here.
Well, if you're here, Andre is.
Love it here.
Oh, yeah. Something is different about you, man.
I just ordered some wings in that other commercial. You think they're gonna make it here? You guys like wings? You blue cheese guy, ranch girl? You're a ranch girl. You guys like blood or something?
So there you go. It's cute. Definitely trying hard to hit the working class guy with that commercial, and to contrast, from like the whole weirdo, artsy crap. So it's cute. It's cute. Funny. Not bad. Not bad. I almost shared the other day, but I was like, I'm not in the mood to give Bud Light any free pub. I wasn't in the mood to give them that. What else did I want to share with you guys? I have this here. Yeah, speaking of like funny stuff, I haven't seen this yet. I was about to check this out, but then my show had to start, so I didn't get to check it out. So we'll watch it together.
So, you're heading home for Thanksgiving, but your family supports Trump. Not good. You're probably wondering, how can I show them I'm a good, tolerant person, and they're all terrible, intolerant people? And how can I find common ground with these rednecks who are literally Hitler? Well, you're in luck. Because I, too, am a good person who likes to share my superiority with those around me. Today, we're going to show you how to talk about Trump with your racist uncle this Thanksgiving. First, try slowly and articulately explaining to him how he is a racist, a bigot, a Nazi, and just an overall garbage person. You can even use simple visual aids if you want to. Next, you can help educate your backward, bigoted family members by handing out copies of Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility.
What's interesting about this is actually what leftists really believe, that they need to like give visual aids like that.
Thoughtful holiday gift will endear them to you and open up the door for more conversation later. Now, sometimes your family might disagree with you and attempt to use far-right tactics, such as facts and logic. Counter this with a powerful haka dance. Fourth, you can easily get through to these MAGA bigots, or maggots for short, by reenacting the entirety of Hamilton. Let it never be said that you threw away your shot. Here's a good one. When your arguments just aren't getting through to them, try screaming at the sky. Simple, but effective. Tip number 6. When you're encountering opinions you disagree with, just run away to a secure location. You might call it a space that is safe. If someone follows you there, then go somewhere else, and so on and so on. And finally, and perhaps most effectively, just start a good food fight. It works every time. Use these simple tips and you'll convert your MAGA family in no time. Because you're right, and they're Nazis. Good luck out there, fellow member of the resistance. If you have any other helpful tips in dealing with your maggot family members, just leave them in the comments down below. Or shout them at the sky. Works every time.
All right. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad at all. What else did I have for you? There's one or two more things I have for you here. This other window. Okay. You can see I'm winding down now because I'm coming to like the end of. There's this guy who I don't know how he's not been arrested yet. I don't know how this guy has not been arrested yet. But I do plan on being in Washington, God willing, on January 20th for the inauguration. I don't know if I'm going to make it in there. But I definitely plan on being down there. And apparently, I'm going to have some company down there with me as we have this guy.
All right, so let's talk about what it is that I actually mean to do.
I do plan on having some kind of meetup there also at some point. Still talking to Rob Gouveia. The talks are going slow because neither of us are feeling the urgency, like it's around the corner. But I'll probably try to resume them with him next week. Maybe talk to Vivo about hooking up with him as well. But I'm going to try and meet a whole bunch of different people who I've yet to meet from this sphere. And hopefully meet more who I never contacted before. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
On Inauguration Day. So there's going to be a lot of people there. A lot of people on his side and a lot of people protesting on our side. I mean to meet as many people as I can. Try to convince them to work together.
Ooh, we're going to be working together.
In a co-opetition.
Co-opetition.
And
see, it's a co-opetition. I don't know if that's a word he thinks is a real word. I don't know what the hell a co-opetition is, but
if everything works the way that it's supposed to, I will be in front of that stage with people chanting for me to be heard. Either Legion or let him speak. Whatever, I don't care. Get me on stage to speak before the president and change the very fabric of human history.
That's going to happen. That's very, very much going to. Please make this happen.
Our future is in our hands, and I mean to take it. Charge forward. Grasp that future with both hands and rip it apart. The future I see is not one I accept. The future I want is one that I will build. And I need your help to get there.
Oh my God. How this loony is still walking free is just beyond me. It's just beyond me. No one knows who he is. I don't know if he's actually calling for that. The cats are speculating on. But I agree that he definitely should be arrested. Wow. Wow. Everyone's sitting in fear over that. That's for sure. That's for sure. In my last video of the day, I don't know what this is. I don't know what we're watching. I don't understand anything about this. When I first was watching this, maybe you saw this. I don't know how this ended up in my feed. I thought she was proud of her black baby. I thought this one was proud of her black baby. And I thought the baby looked kind of slow. And, well, look. I was like, is this kid on drugs? What the hell are we seeing here? It looks like she bought them. I was like, why is she treating like she bought them?
Oh, squishy tummy. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. He's got a squishy tummy. It's my happy boy. He's already spoken for, so I'm sorry he's not available. I do sell blankets, but that's all in order. I don't actually just have kits in stock. They sell really fast. So if you're interested in some, oh, and I can do this too. Watch this. And he has armatures. Get your head up, boy. Say hi.
When I first heard that, I was like, who you calling boy? Who you calling boy? What's that supposed to mean? What's that supposed to mean? Who you calling? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Apparently, that is a fake child. It's a silicon. That's what the heck is wrong with people? What the heck is wrong with people? That's a doll. That's a doll. Wow. Yeah. There's nothing else to be said. There's really nothing else to be said. There's nothing else. And yes, I guess there's that too. I'm not sure which is creepier, the kid or the woman. They're both very, very creepy. And perhaps it's that too. No one's saying I can fix her. I can guarantee you that. No one's saying that. Slow beeper. Korg is in horses. Korgus in horses. Welcome. Welcome to the following, my brother. The following is not at all a cult type of cult. I know you're called a follower now. I am not. Not the leader of the following. Just your host. But welcome to the following. Where we're all about greater personal growth. That's really all that matters here. Greater personal growth. That is my show. I'm sticking to it. So I'm going to land my plane here. Tell you that God willing, tomorrow I plan on having, hoping to have a locals. Not sure. Probably tomorrow. Probably. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see. But I got to get on out of here. I thank you all for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, 10 p.m. tomorrow, starting on time tomorrow, 10 p.m. Regular time tomorrow. Till then, look out for your loved ones. No matter how hard, no matter how they dress it up, lab meat is not for you. It's for they, them. It's not for you. And do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Don't eat the bugs. Don't eat the bugs. Have a good night, my friends. Godspeed.